Everyone, Floating Ventilator Guy is back. And in these videos, we will talk about what we are measuring on the mechanical ventilator and how we measure it and how we know this is an accurate measurement, because we can get the measurements, but knowing they're accurate is the most important thing. All right, so first up is plateau pressure. So it's important to realize that all of these measurements need to be done on patients that are either passive or paralyzed. So if you freshly intubate a patient and use the paralytic, then this would be the perfect time to measure these things, because given the equation of motion, which I haven't really gone over because it's more of an advanced topic in the actually physiology of the ventilator, but I will go over it. Given the equation of motion, if the patient is very active on the ventilator, all of these measurements are not accurate. So the first things first is we have to ensure that the patient is either passive or paralyzed. Now, I wouldn't paralyze someone to get these measurements, but you have to take into account how much the patient is breathing on the ventilator. So on the McKay Servo U, if you press maneuvers, it brings you to this screen. So if you press and hold the inspiratory hold button, and you'll hear it beep, and then once it beeps, after inspiration, as you can see here, which I drew a yellow line through, going through at the end of inspiration, it'll hold the flow, and then given the equation of motion at the bottom, the flow goes to zero. So the P airway equals the P alv, or the plateau pressure. And you can see that we have a nice hold here because the flow is zero. The patient isn't influencing the circuit at all because the airway pressure is staying stable. This little sawtooth measurement is probably the vent sensing the heart rate. And what you see here is the volume not going out. So this is 1, times 0, 1 second, 2 seconds, hold it, and then it'll give you the number right here, which this plateau pressure was 19 in centimeters of water. Okay, next up is the expiratory hold. So we do the same thing. We press and hold, expiratory hold. It'll beep, give you a little boop, boop. Then once the patient fully exhales, flow will stop, so airway pressure becomes PEEP. So given the equation of motion, PEEP is now the airway pressure, the orange line, and if there's no flow, then that equals the alveolar pressure, but since there's no flow, that term becomes zero, and since there's no total volume, that term also becomes zero. So now what the ventilator is transducing is just the total PEEP. Ideally, you would have 0 to minimal auto PEEP. We go back to our goals of ventilation that I posted a few days ago. We would have 0 to minimal auto PEEP. So here our set PEEP is 5. Our measured total PEEP up here is 5.3. So 5 minus 5.3 is 0.3 centimeters of water of auto PEEP, but that's obviously minimal and is negligible. So essentially there is no auto PEEP here. And we know that. Now, if the patient was breathing or trying to take a breath in, you would watch this orange line dip down. So it would